Vamos começar a nossa sessão de hoje de manhã. Quando o professor Júlio me pediu para fazer a apresentação do professor Michael Burowoy, eu imediatamente pensei, especialmente, em apresentá-lo, a trajetória do professor Michael Burowoy para os jovens sociólogos, enfim. E imaginei que a melhor maneira seria contar um pouco a história, enfim, do Michael fazendo pesquisas em Zâmbia, no sul de Chicago, Hungria, enfim, ex-União Soviética, depois Rússia, enfim. Porém, quando eu estava passando ali pelo corredor, eu vi a foto que saiu publicada na Folha de São Paulo, numa entrevista recente, enfim, que o professor Michael Burowoy havia dado para a Folha de São Paulo, e mudei de ideia. Achei que talvez a melhor maneira de apresentar o professor Michael Burowoy para as novas gerações, para os jovens sociólogos, fosse contar um pouco a história daquela foto em que ele está dando uma aula em frente ao Wheeler Hall, na Universidade de Berkeley, com vários estudantes, enfim. E de fato, essa foto é muito interessante, porque, como outras universidades, Berkeley também está passando por uma crise bastante importante, com cortes de financiamento vindos do Estado. Os estudantes estão muito mobilizados. Aquela foto ali é uma foto que mostra esse processo de mobilização na Universidade de Berkeley. Provavelmente Berkeley e Madison são as duas universidades mais mobilizadas dos Estados Unidos em termos de ativismo na base, enfim. E foi interessante porque os estudantes, naquele momento, eles resolveram fazer uma espécie de protesto e se acorrentaram ao prédio de Wheeler Hall, no topo. A notícia logo se espalhou e o Michael Burowoy estava dando uma aula e decidiu mudar a aula de dentro do prédio para frente do prédio, a fim de apoiar o protesto estudantil. Chegamos lá em frente ao prédio e existiam 2 helicópteros da polícia, a polícia estava cercando o prédio, estava uma confusão desgraçada, muito barulho, e o Michael continuou dando a aula dele, que era sobre Foucault, e tentando refletir, no meio daquela confusão toda, sobre o que Foucault diria a respeito daquela situação. Então, foi uma aula muito interessante, teve bastante repercussão, enfim, porque aquele protesto foi um protesto, vamos dizer assim, transmitido para vários lugares dos Estados Unidos, e entre os estudantes de Berkeley, aquele momento em especial em que ele está dando aula na frente de Wheeler, ficou conhecido como Foucault para o povo. E foi um momento bastante interessante. Então, talvez essa seja uma maneira de introduzir o professor Michael Burowoy para os jovens, enfim, e para aqueles que também não o conhecem ou eventualmente não conheçam menos, enfim, a respeito da sua trajetória. Sem mais delongas, eu gostaria de passar a palavra, então, para o professor Michael Burowoy, professor da Universidade da Califórnia em Berkeley, Departamento de Sociologia, ex-presidente da American Sociological Association e atual presidente da International Sociological Association, da ISA. Ok? Professor Michael.
Obrigado. I'm sorry, but I really don't speak any Portuguese. Desculpa. 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 So I'm going to speak in English, and I'll try and speak slowly for the poor interpreters there. So thank you, Huey. In fact, Huey described my recent engagement in student politics, and that is actually the picture that is on the PowerPoint. But I should like to say first that it's really great to be here at ANPOCS. It was Marco in Paris, who I think it was in 2006, 5 years ago, described the wonders of ANPOCS. The wonders of ANPOCS, and indeed they are the wonders of ANPOCS. So he tried to persuade me to come. Now, this is the first time I've been able to actually come, and I was not teaching. So it's been a wonderful experience for me. And it's been wonderful because to see actually, I think this has probably been the best organized conference I've ever been to in my life. So I should like to thank the organizers, your president, and actually was Camilo Camilo, I don't know, he's probably not here. But anyway, I just like to thank you all for inviting me and for this wonderful conference. Also, because I don't speak Portuguese, I don't actually know what's been going on in your sessions, but I am an ethnographer, so I can see that there is a real excitement, and I have interpreters all around telling me what has been happening in your sessions. So sounds like there have been fascinating sessions, and they involve, interestingly, for me very importantly, a cross-disciplinary engagement, which is also very unusual, and of course many generations. I know that the Hotel Gloria is supposed to be populated by enormous commotion and engagement all evening, but apparently it's all moved to the square. So the younger generation has moved into the square. In fact, the whole thing, like, look, this poor place, Caxambu, it's like Occupy Caxambu. It's like Occupy Wall Street, now it's Occupy Caxambu, but for a few days only. Anyway, it's really been very interesting to be here, and it sort of speaks, I think, for my understanding of Brazilian sociology. I don't know a lot about Brazilian anthropology or political science, but Brazilian sociology has always impressed me. In fact, one of the reasons I never came to Brazil, my students used to come to Brazil and do field research here and write about Brazil, but I always refused to come to Brazil because I knew if I came to Brazil, I would never leave. It was clearly the most fascinating, engaging place to come to. So this is only my second visit. But anyway, the Brazilian sociology has, to my mind, a very, very central place in global international sociology. And that is part of what I will say today, how I see Brazilian sociology and its place in a broader global context. I will argue that it has all four dimensions of a wonderful sociology. It has a professional dimension, it has a policy dimension, that is, it has an applied dimension, and we'll talk about these words later. It has a critical dimension, and it has a public dimension. You take this for granted, but believe me, there are very few places in the world where there is such a dynamic, flourishing sociology with such an extraordinary history over the last 60, 70 years. So I want to talk about this later, but I want to do this in the context of a broader vision of the future of the social sciences. I want also to emphasize that the Brazilian sociology and the SBS has made it its mission to actually populate world sociology. I think it's sometimes almost an imperial move. Wherever there is an international conference of sociology, you always find an army of Brazilian sociologists. And they play a very important role in the organization I am now president of, the International Sociological Association. And Tom Dwyer, who I saw here somewhere, he's disappeared already. There he is. Yes, anyway, he was telling me about the BRICS, the recent conference in Beijing, organized for Chinese, Brazilian, Indian, and Russian. How could I ferret out Russian? Okay, and Russian sociologists, and bringing the sort of this semi-periphery together to think about a new vision of sociology, perhaps that Raywin Connell would talk from the South, though the South is a very problematic concept. But anyway, yes. So I think that Brazilian sociology has played this very important role globally. And I want to say I'm now president of the ISA, International Sociological Association, and I therefore have to give you a bit of propaganda. But the propaganda, as I'm going to give you, is very relevant. All right. The International Sociological Association, it has been going since 1949, and it embraces, it's got about 6,000, 5,000, 6,000 members. It has two parts. It has research committees, about 55, and national associations. And it as president, I have been involved in trying to build a global community, particularly of young sociologists. And I'm trying to use the digital worlds, ISA online, to develop that global community. And let me just say a few things about it. First of all, that's our website, if anybody's interested. And I will show you, what I want to emphasize is these digital worlds that we have begun. The Global Dialogue, of which I spend an enormous amount of time, is a magazine that we have developed that basically talks about ongoing activities of the ISA, but even more importantly, how sociology looks in different parts of the world, and also gives a sociological lens on fundamental problems, social policy issues in different parts of the world. It comes out 5 times a year, and you can pass this around, and anybody who really wants it can just appropriate this. It is also actually online you can find it at the website. Anyway, this comes out in 12 languages at the moment, 5 times a year. And I think that we have a wonderful Brazilian team, the Paulistas, students at USP, and there are teams all around the world. So we're trying to build up a community of young sociologists this way. Journeys, right, the second one is Journeys Through Sociology, videos of the executive committee. Come on, there we go. All right, universities in crisis. Now, you may not think your universities are in crisis. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But universities are in crisis in most parts of the world. And this is a blog that actually involves an account of we've got now about 40 countries where universities are in crisis and a description of those crises. Global Sociology Live, this is the future. Namely to run basically courses that are available to the world that involve sociologists from different parts of the world. You can see this again on the website. This is sociologists from different places actually discussing global sociology with students at Berkeley. And next semester, there will be a public sociology live in which there will be courses taking place simultaneously all over the world around the same issues so that students can communicate through Facebook. Facebook. Right. Through Facebook. There will be amongst the new generation of sociologists. Yes, where will we be without Facebook? Okay, SocioTube is a place where we put special videos, and I guess what I should tell you, if you're interested in international sociology, and I am, of course, recognize there are anthropologists and political scientists probably here, but anyway, sociologists will be meeting in Buenos Aires in August next year. It's a sort of World Sociological Forum, and that should be an exciting event, even if it's only because we're in Buenos Aires. So I think that I invite you all to come there and partake in the forum. Anyway, my point is that the International Sociological Association is trying to build, and has been trying to build for 60, 70 years, an international global community of sociologists facing similar problems. And I think the problem I'm going to talk about today is the problem of the future of the social sciences. So let me begin with the future of the social sciences. I don't know how many are aware of this, but UNESCO published a World Social Science Report in 2010. And it is a very thick document with lots and lots of papers from sociologists and economists, not so many economists, sociologists, anthropologists, geographers, political scientists, trying to understand the problems of the social sciences globally. So let me summarize their summary of what they come up with. First, they argue in a very positive light. Positive argument is that basically the social sciences have spread across the world in the last 60, 70 years after the Second World War. It's a very progressive imagination. They argue, perhaps correctly, that the social sciences, the vocabulary, the concepts of social science have been embedded in our common sense, and public common sense is informed by the social sciences. They argue that, in fact, it informs policy all over the world, that there has been a global expansion. In a sense, its very strength is a result of its invisibility. It is everywhere and nowhere, they say. So this is the very positive perspective on social sciences. But then they say, we face real serious problems in the world today. And they enumerate a number of problems. We could also enumerate them. The challenges of the world, environmental problems, inequality, poverty, financial crises, changing patterns of demography, the aging of populations, marginalization, and the tragedy of many new forms of urbanization. And we might add precariousness, which is the concept of the year. Yeah, all right. Those are the challenges the world faces, and the question is, are the social sciences equipped to face those challenges? And basically the report, which compiles all these short engagements with the problems of the social science, this report says basically the social sciences are not able to meet the challenges. The organization of knowledge, of social science knowledge, has very uneven development, and Raywin was talking about that yesterday. That's the assumption of her perspective, and very uneven development of the social sciences. That, in the United States, I don't have time, but it is extraordinary, the concentration of resources in the United States. And then when you include Europe, it is also amazing. But then there are the semi-periphery, China, Brazil, India, South Africa, and to a lesser extent, Russia. There are such places where there is a social science, but it still does not have quite the resources of the North. So that's one problem, is the uneven development of the social sciences. We could also talk about the implications for the domination of the center over the periphery, over the semi-periphery, the problems of language, which we talked about a little bit yesterday. There are many ways in which this unevenness expresses itself. So then there is also processes of disciplinization that is happening, how in fact the rise of disciplines and their autonomy makes it difficult often to tackle the challenges. We also have the idea of evaluation, which I'll talk about a little bit in a few minutes. The evaluation of disciplines, the criteria of evaluations are often not congruent with the challenges that we face in the world. And finally, there is the issue of the privatization of the production of knowledge. These are some of the issues that the report tackles. Now, am I going too fast? Okay, very good. As Marco says, there's no dislike in Facebook. Had you noticed that? It's very interesting. He is complaining. He likes to dislike everything. Okay. So, all right, the question is this. All right, we have a gap between the challenges and the organization of the production of knowledge. There is a gap between the two. Oops, Jesus Christ. Why the gap? Mind the gap, that's right. Mind the gap. Oh, yes, the London Underground. Mind the gap. All right, but indeed, mind the gap. But first, why the gap? Why is there a gap between the train and the platform, between challenges and organization? Yes, why the gap and how to bridge the gap? Bridge the gap. This report really does not have a theory. Does not have a theory of why, in fact, the challenges and the organization of knowledge are moving in different directions. Why there is this incapacity of the social sciences to effectively address the challenges we face. And what I want to talk about today in the rest of my time is essentially the source of that gap and how we may engage with that gap. So, there we have the challenges and the global division of academic labor. What lies behind this? The gap. What is determining both the challenges and the organization of knowledge? The report, the UNESCO report, essentially says, okay, here are the social sciences outside the world, and we're trying to examine the world and its problems. But in fact, the social sciences are not outside the world. They are inside the world. And in fact, the social sciences, in the context of their production of knowledge, the labor processes, Raywin talked about it yesterday, the university, are themselves subject to what? Third wave marketization. Some people call this neoliberalism. Third wave marketization. I use the word third wave marketization that essentially descends upon the world in the 1970s, inspired by Reagan and Thatcher, spreads in different forms to different places, structural adjustment in the global south, shock therapy in post-Soviet world. But this third wave marketization is an expansion of the commodification, expansion of market forces. But it's not the first time this has happened under capitalism. This is the third wave. And if I were to give another lecture, I would give you my theory of the three waves of marketization. The ideas come from a fellow called Karl Polanyi. Is it in Portuguese? Like, okay. Karl, very good, very good. Karl Polanyi, The Great Transformation. Yes, it's in Portuguese. Everybody's read Portuguese. Oh, very good. I knew I was in a good audience. Everybody's read Karl Polanyi. Anyway, it's a brilliant, it's a canonical text in the United States and in Europe. And anyway, and it's not exactly, it was written by an Austrian. Well, he was Hungarian, lived in Austria, then in England, and wrote it in that. So a global intellectual. Global intellectual. Anyway, Karl Polanyi writes, and we could spend the rest of our time talking about this wonderful book and its relevance today. But Karl Polanyi, first of all, Karl Polanyi thought the market was so terrible. Written in 1944, he thought that the market was responsible for Stalinism, for fascism, but also for social democracy. These were reactions to an overextension of the market. He never imagined that there could be another wave of marketization. It did not enter his imagination that humanity will be so foolish as to enter into another period of market fundamentalism. Well, we have entered into another period of market fundamentalism, what I call third wave marketization. And how do I think of this third wave? Well, I use Polanyi's fictitious commodities. Ooh, how do you translate that into Portuguese?
Fictícia, mercadoria fictícia.
Sounds good? Okay. So everybody, the idea of fictitious commodity is that if you make something into a commodity, it loses its use value. So when you turn labor into something that is bought and sold in an unregulated way, it cannot be effective as labor. When you commodify land, buy and sell land, then you lose the capacity of land to generate the material existence of the human race. When you commodify money, make it subject to being bought and sold. And that is what the financial crisis is about. Creating new forms of commodified money, then actually money makes it very difficult for economies to function. And that is precisely the economic crisis we are in now, globally, through finance capital. But these were the three things that Polanyi said you must never fully commodify. You have to regulate their commodification. Regulate. But Polanyi didn't think about one other fictitious commodity. And that is knowledge. Very good, Marilee, very good. Knowledge.